Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Big Igloo Podcast. It is Theology Thursday. I'm here with Travis Johnson. How you doing there, Mr. Travis?
Always good.
Smart Theology. Dumb dad jokes. Did I cut you off?
No, you did not.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No,
all right.
I'm excited.
Good.
I want to hear. I want to hear the dumb dad joke.
I don't know that I have one today. I don't. I mean, I know. I was so because I'm so excited.
Yes.
We're starting a new series here, and so I prepped more with the Smart
I need
Theology.
to get better.
So
I see some good ones, and I always forget them. I'm terrible at that. But
you gotta up your dad joke game here. So. Anyway, but hey, hopefully we'll be heavy on the Smart Theology. We are, like I said, we're just starting a new series. This is called Rescuing Jonah.
All right.
Rescuing Jonah. And Pastor John, he's not with us today. He decided to like up and just run out of state here. So,
Yes.
So hopefully he'll be back with us next episode. But John, we got a schedule to keep, okay? So we got to keep things moving. So, anyway, we're doing this thing, Rescuing Jonah. I don't know, it's probably be like 4 or 5 parts. And, the reason why I'm calling it Rescuing Jonah, Travis, is because I think very unintentionally, but I think we as Christians, we have done a disservice to the book of Jonah.
All right.
Yeah. We've done a disservice, and let me just tell you, listen, I love little animated, films of vegetables singing and things like that, just as much as the next person.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
Not mention anything specifically here. No, seriously, I love those cartoons. I love those things. My kids watched them and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a problem. I think sometimes when we take these big, really huge stories in the Old Testament and we reduce it down to a children's book or a cartoon or something.
Yeah.
And I hope you join us over the next few weeks, because in the story of Jonah, you're going to see this is really complicated.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
I mean, it's very loaded. And we reduce it to what? What do we reduce it to, Travis?
That's a story about a fish.
Story about a fish, which is like what, 2 verses?
Yeah.
And we make it all about this stinking fish, And
Yeah.
so obviously the book of Jonah raises some questions, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, like, number one, because of the fish, can we even believe this?
Right. Yeah.
What do you think about that, Travis?
Well, okay. So, I mean, that's not something that typically happens to somebody, getting swallowed by a fish and then,
Right.
puked out somewhere else.
Right. Not a recommended way to travel. No.
But I suppose, that's why it's called a miracle and not just a Tuesday. It's,
Right.
it's something out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And so
I like Frank Turek, who says, Jonah, what do we call it? Is it a tail of a whale or a whale of a tail?
Yes.
And absolutely. So we got those issues. Now here's the thing.
Sure.
That doesn't necessarily, I grew up as a Christian, so I'll admit, hey, I grew up hearing these stories, but I think no matter what, if you accept, I think number one, if you just accept or ponder the question, why is there something rather than nothing? I think you have to at least consider miraculous claims on some level. I mean, just the existence of the universe is something that you have to seriously consider. I'm not saying that automatically leads to Christianity or a belief in Christianity, but the fact that why is there something rather than nothing? And the fact that the universe can pop into existence, or at least that's, even science seems to be leaning that way, like towards, what Big Bang, cosmology, whatever. But the point of it is this, like the fact that you have life, that you have things like that. Now, if you at all posit that God is responsible for that, then really miraculous claims are not really, again, out of the realm of possibilities.
Absolutely.
Not that those things aren't happen, like you said, every 5 minutes or whatnot.
Sure.
But the fact that if God intervened to create a universe in the first place, then a fish isn't really a big deal. Right. It's not a big deal for God.
Absolutely.
Now, I understand how people may have objections to this.
Yeah.
Here's something that's really interesting. When it comes to the book of Jonah, though, and here's kind of what I want to do. We're gonna give like this big 30,000 foot view right now, just to kind of maybe whet your appetite a little bit before we really go diving in. But the thing is like we have to point some things out when it comes to the book of Jonah, because here's the deal. Travis, are you familiar with the FedEx arrow?
Oh, yes. I think actually because of you.
I love this. There's people, I've used this in a sermon one time, and there's a gentleman that comes up to me all the time. He's like, I see that stupid arrow now every time because I think of you every time. I was like, well, pray for me or something. I don't know. But yeah, explain to our listeners or viewers.
Okay, yeah. Well, so, the FedEx, like inside the logo,
Yep.
if you look between, what is it, the X?
E and the X.
The E and the X. Yeah, it forms just that little arrow.
There's an arrow.
Yeah.
FedEx had to specially create that font.
No kidding.
Just to have that arrow. The crazy thing about it is I was probably in my 20s before somebody pointed it out to me.
Yeah.
But once you see it, like you see, you can't not see it.
Right.
Like the arrow is always there in the FedEx logo. So there you go. Be looking for that. But here's the deal. I love to say that because the thing of it is like, I think one of the reasons why we want to call this Rescuing Jonah is because when we come to the story of Jonah, if you're like me and you've grown up hearing Bible stories, there's a certain way you hear the story, you think you know it, you're familiar with it, and someone has to come along and say, yeah, but look at this here.
Sure.
Look at this detail here. And what I just really, what's in my heart to really convey here is there's a lot going on here in this book of Jonah.
Yeah.
More than a fish.
Sure.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
But there's so much more, and there's so many more implications for us today.
Yeah.
And I always say, do not read the Bible like, oh, there's good people and bad people and this, No, there's bad people in Jesus, right? Bad people in Jesus. And the thing of it is like, don't look at the story of Jonah and think, well, that's just someone else. No, we gotta read Jonah, and then we gotta understand, like, how are we like Jonah?
Yeah.
Maybe how are we unlike Jonah? But Jonah's not too different than, many humans, and myself included. And so here's what I want to do. As we kind of just jump into this, I'm going to start just even with the first line, okay? The first line that says, now the word of the Lord came to Jonah. Okay, stop, time out, pause, right? What would this seem to be implying as far as the genre of literature? What do we do with that, with the word of the Lord? What does that indicate?
Like a prophet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So we know this is a prophetic book,
Yep.
right? And so the word of the Lord comes to Jonah. Now, here's what's really interesting is as you and I were talking earlier, when it comes to many, even conservative scholars, there's kind of a debate. Did this even really happen?
Yeah.
Okay?
Even within Christianity.
Within Christianity. I'm talking people who are Bible-believing. I'm not talking liberal
Right.
scholars. I'm talking conservative evangelical scholars who are kind of divided on this. Some guys who say, no, I don't think that it happened. Some people say, no, it absolutely happened. We should take it. Now, here's the deal. A lot of times people think that it centers around the fish, but it's not.
Yeah.
That's not where the debate is actually going on. The reason why, and this is what we have to kind of keep in mind, the book of Jonah, at least as I understand it, and I draw from heavily from Tim Mackey, from the Bible Project. He pointed this out. Tim Keller is also so two guys named Tim who really shaped my thoughts. Right, two guys named Tim sounds like a moving service or something like that. You need help moving? Call two guys named Tim. Anyway, that's a plug for two guys named Tim. No,
Thanks your dad dumped it.
There it is. There it is.
It just naturally flows out of you.
It just flows out, right? But anyway, a couple of guys that have kind of, in fact, I got Tim Keller's book in front of me here I'm going to go to in a second. But this debate about did it really happen? And here's the thing. It's not about the miraculous claim of the fish or even the plant that grows later. It's because when you look at the book of Jonah, there is so much exaggerated language.
Yeah.
This is, I think it was Tim Mackey who said, you got to imagine this is like Saturday Night Live meets a comic book. Okay. And as he was like kind of unpacking it, I'm sitting here thinking, because as you'll see as we go along here, some of the language in here is like, I'm thinking like, and listen, I'm not trying to be political or anything like that, but I mean, Donald Trump, right? I'm going to build a big building. It's going to be a fantastic building. It's going to be the best building in the world.
Yeah, really big. Yeah.
But like, even whether you're a fan or not, that's beside the point. That's beside the point. But I mean, even if you love Donald Trump, it's like, that as you're listening to it, he's like, yeah, that's just how he talks, right? Like he's just. It's the best one ever. It's like, whatever. He's just always doing that. And you're going to see elements of that in the story of Jonah. So there's some scholars that when they come to this, they're like, this is so exaggerated. It's so that it is satire.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. Even conservative scholars who say, no, this absolutely happened, many of them would even concede and say, yeah, it's definitely exaggerated in its claims because it is teaching us something. Now, here's the deal: just so full disclosure here, I think Jonah happened. I have no problem accepting it, but I want to point out, because as we go through some of these things, I think it just adds to kind of the humor.
Yeah.
but also some of the lessons that we can learn
Absolutely.
from this. But we do have to kind of see it in this exaggerated lens.
Yes.
And I think it makes it, I just appreciate it even more.
Yeah.
That the literature right here that's going on. So here's what's interesting is, so it starts right away, right? Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, okay, son of Amittai. Okay. Now Jonah, do you know what Jonah means?
No.
Okay, so Jonah is literally means dove.
Oh,
Okay. Now, so doves are kind of seen as like pure, faithful. Like it just evokes some of that imagery.
Yep.
Okay. So here's the dove, son of Amittai, which actually means faithfulness.
Oh,
Okay. And so here's the deal. Let's just stop. Time out. We know the rest of the story. That's a complete setup, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a setup. It's if you know anything about the book of Jonah, you're like, because if you know what Jonah's about to do,
Right.
yeah, he's not faithful. He's not faithful. He's the son of faithfulness. Like, no. He's a dove. He's pure. He's pure in heart and stuff. No.
Yeah,
No.
completely the opposite.
Completely the opposite. So we get this in the very first line. And like I said, one of the reasons why I do believe Jonah is someone that actually existed, 2 Kings refers to him.
Sure.
He's actually a prophet, and this kind of plays into this as well. Maybe we'll come back to this. In 2 Kings, he actually prophesies to Jeroboam II. And of course, I mean, Jeroboam the first is the one who kind of hijacks the northern kingdom, and there's a division in Israel. Jeroboam's a wicked king, and if Jeroboam 1 is bad, what's Jeroboam 2? Twice as bad, right? Another dad joke. I don't know. No, he's terrible, right?
Yeah.
So he's another bad leader. But what's interesting is the word of the Lord comes to Jonah in that case. This is not in the book of Jonah, but in 2 Kings, that basically God is going to expand the territory and kind of give land back to Israel, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you have this prophecy that comes to a wicked king that God's actually going to expand.
Yeah.
Which just shows, listen, God is sovereign in the details.
Yeah.
And we don't understand what's always, going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. God. Well, yeah. Just God. Yeah. Messing with the finer details and
Absolutely.
yeah.
And so we see this. The word of the Lord comes to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, here we go. Here it is. Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me. Now, pause here for a second, okay? Travis, if you're just reading this as a first-time, listener, observer, what you thinking there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, Nineveh's a pretty evil place.
It is.
Yeah.
What do you know of the Assyrians?
Well, they're bad people. So, I mean, I just know, like, Nineveh, I mean, just geographically, it's what, northern Iraq?
It's kind of Syria, north of Israel, kind of in that region, yeah.
So, I mean, kind of the northern people that are, definitely not living at all for God.
No.
And so.
Brutal. These guys are brutal. These guys would literally skin people alive. Yeah. They would impale people on poles. They would even, if they go in and would conquer, if they'd go in and conquer a city, sometimes they would even force their victims, if you will, to carry the heads of their deceased relatives.
Jeez.
Things like that. Like, I just came in and slaughtered your family, now carry their head out. These guys were brutal.
Yeah.
And so you can understand, from maybe Israel's perspective, from a prophet of Israel. I mean, Amos comes along, and Amos is kind of a contemporary of that time. Amos comes along and prophesies some things to the other kingdoms around.
Sure.
And it's some brutal stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, God's not happy with this. Now, what's interesting is it says right here, it says that, he's calling out against their evil. Come up, so it sounds like, okay, he's got a tough word for Jonah to give to them.
Right.
Right. But what's Jonah's response?
He's going to run.
He's going to run. Now, does that at all fit what we think should happen?
No. He's a prophet.
Prophets don't run. No. You don't do that.
So you just got a word of the Lord. That's your one job.
That is your job. That's like a pizza delivery man saying he's not going to deliver pizzas,
What are you doing?
It's like, well, that's what we pay you for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what's happening with Jonah here, okay? Now, here's the thing. Verse 3. So we're only 2 verses in, okay? Yeah. And already we should see the irony. We should see the son of faithfulness is about to run.
Yeah.
This pure dove is about to flee. And so here it says, but, verse 3, Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. Oh, so that's really interesting. It's not just, he's wanting to get away from the presence of the Lord.
Wow. Yeah.
Has he not read Psalms? Where can I go from your presence?
Yeah.
Like, did he forget that song? I don't know. Wasn't on his playlist.
No, I guess not.
And so anyway, so here we go. So Jonah rose to flee Tarshish. Now, do you know what's significant about Tarshish?
Mm-mm.
All right. So for us today, I don't know. What do you, I don't even know that I know the answer to this. Mm-hmm. But, I know when I was a kid, we always used to make the joke, oh, if you were digging in the ground, you could, if you dig far enough, you would hit China or something like that, so like, but there's something like I don't know what the complete opposite end of the earth is, because there's a point where if I travel far enough, that's the farthest point before I start coming back home, basically, right?
Yep.
Well, in the ancient world, obviously they had a much different understanding of geography. Well, here's what's going on is Tarshish, as far as Jonah would have been concerned, is like the end of the earth.
Okay.
We might say something like, oh, that's all the way over in Timbuktu, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so basically that's Tarshish for Jonah.
Okay.
Like there is no place farther away that he can get, and it's in the opposite direction of Nineveh.
Yeah.
So if Nineveh is east, he's going west, right? He's going to the farthest place. So once again, we got to be like, we should be laughing at this point,
Right.
Just going like, Jonah, what? Prophets wait for the word of the Lord. You get the word of the Lord. You're not going to do it, and you're going to the farthest place. And here's what's interesting. Well, maybe we'll kind of get to this in a second. We want to pay attention, or in upcoming episodes, it says, and he went down to Joppa, found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare, went down into it to go with them away from the presence of the Lord. And so what's interesting is even that becomes like this motif of Jonah going down. And then going down, and he'll even go down into the belly of the ship. It's this idea that even we might use language today of like, boy, they really had a real downfall.
Sure.
The language is really cueing us into, it's not going to go well for Jonah.
Yeah.
It's foreshadowing here.
Absolutely.
Now, did you get that in any talking vegetable?
I did not. No.
You got any thoughts here? I know I've been talking a lot. But.
Yeah, no. So the whole idea of going down, it's like, man, if we're going to just look at this story and then apply it to ourselves, like sin has a way of making us so stupid.
Yeah.
And in our brain, it makes sense, but to everyone else around, it's like, what are you doing?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, so we should definitely see ourselves as like, what is that one thing in my life that makes me so stinking blind and stupid?
That's really good.
You know what I mean?
That's really good. 100%. And that was something I think when I listened to Tim Mackey, and Tim Mackey's from the Bible Project, if you're familiar with him at all. One of the things that really appreciated about like when he was teaching on this was, again, the temptation can be for us to read this and go, oh, wow, how ridiculous, how silly and stupid. But at some point, it's really going to be a punch in the gut for us. Mm-hmm. It's something that's actually going to sit there and go, if we really understand Jonah, we're going to see ourselves show up somewhere.
Right.
And so it should be caution to us, not to sit in judgment of Jonah, but really to look at it and go, well, wait a minute. When's a time in my life that I know I heard God tell me to do something?
Yeah.
And I did the opposite.
Right. Absolutely.
We can't sit in judgment of Jonah.
Yeah.
In that case, right?
Exactly.
And so we're gonna stop there for a second as far as like I'm gonna read one more verse here, but it comes later in chapter 4. But this is something that Tim Keller brings out. Really, and this kind of helps us set up. So again, we're just kind of giving this flyover, this big 30,000-foot view, and hopefully you come back and catch the rest of the series, because there's so much here, and we'll probably cover a chapter a week for the next few weeks here. But this is something, and this is from a book that Tim Keller wrote. He was a pastor in New York City. He called this "Rediscovering Jonah." Because again, I think Tim kind of taps into this idea that, we kind of think, oh, I know that story.
Right.
Well, no, you probably don't.
Sure.
You probably don't know that story. And so here's what's interesting is in his book, he kind of suggests these two different scenes. Mm-hmm. And so here's a pattern. And again, this is like the FedEx era. I want to point this out so that we see this moving forward. Mm-hmm. And we see some parallels. In scene 1, this is Jonah, the pagans, and the sea.
Yeah.
Jonah, the pagans, and the sea. And what's crazy about it is, again, there's these pagans, people who don't follow God, and I mean, Jonah has this interaction with them. And so then we see scene 2 where Jonah actually makes it to Nineveh. And so you have Jonah, the pagans, and the city.
Yeah.
Okay, so we see the book of Jonah can kind of be divided in these two scenes. Now get this. In 1:1, what do we see? We just read it. The word comes to Jonah. All right, well, that repeats again in chapter 3, verse 1. The word comes to Jonah, okay? In 1 verse 2, the message to be conveyed, all right? Go tell them this, Jonah.
Yeah.
Go tell them. And then 3:2, the message to be conveyed, all right? So again, word of the Lord comes back.
Yep.
And then 1:3, there's the response. We just saw this. In scene 1, the response of Jonah is to run.
Yeah.
But in 3:3, the response to Jonah is, okay, he reluctantly, but he goes and he does it, right? Then you have Jonah and God's world. So that's Jonah and God's word, 2 scenes.
Yep.
Now you have 2 scenes of Jonah and God's world. So there's the word of warning in 1:4. In 3:4, repeats word of warning, scene 2, right? It's back to scene 1, the response of the pagans. So we're gonna see this in the upcoming episodes. How did the people on the ship respond to the word from Jonah?
Yeah.
Right. How did they? And it's just crazy. I don't want to give too much away, right? But if you read ahead, if you look for this, you'll know. All right. And then again, we see in 3:5, we see the response of the pagans, the Ninevites, right? How do they respond? In 1:6, it says the response of the pagan leader. There's a leader on the ship. How does he respond? Well, then there's a little bit later, the response of the pagan leader, the king of Nineveh.
Yep.
And so again, we're seeing these 2 scenes. There's kind of like a story and then kind of this repetition.
Yeah.
And then how the pagans' response was ultimately better than Jonah's. That's in 1:7. And that's going to be an episode all by itself, right? And then there's 3:7, how the pagans' response was ultimately better than Jonah's. Okay, and then here, what's crazy is Jonah and God's grace. So in 2:1 through 10, we have how God taught grace to Jonah through the fish, and then 4:1 through 10, how God taught grace to Jonah through the plant.
Yeah.
Again. Did you get this from any talking vegetables, or did you get this from any kids, book or anything like that?
Yeah. No.
No, not at all. Not at all. Now here's the thing. Travis, what do you think when most people read this and knowing what we just talked about, like Nineveh was brutal.
Yeah.
And these guys they were savages, right? So what do you think, or what do you hear most of the time as to why Jonah ran?
He probably was, he was scared.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you go into an evil city, like he's probably gonna be killed, or
Right.
prophets don't have a good
They don't have a good track record
of
of making it. Yeah. No, and actually, you saying that, it's really interesting because it's funny because in my mind I can see one of my uncles reading this to me and my cousin and talking about this, and I remember him even kind of saying, "Oh, Jonah was scared." Here's the thing: I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that anymore. I don't think Jonah was scared. And actually, we can go to the book of Jonah.
Yeah.
Because let's look at this in Jonah 4, okay? And so once again, I think sometimes that's the way things are depicted, and we have to ask ourselves, where have I understood this? Did I get this from a children's book? Because a lot of times they depict Jonah was afraid, and that's why he ran. Listen to this. It says this in verse 4:1. It says, "But it displeased Jonah exceedingly." So this is after he repents his message and they have national revival, all this kind of stuff, right? Yeah. It displeased Jonah exceedingly. Again, stop. Travis, you just said, what's the history of the prophets tell us when it comes to their messages?
Yeah, he's probably going to get killed.
Right.
His life's on the line.
Okay, and for most prophets, that was the case, right?
Sure.
But is that what just happened in Jonah?
Not at all. Not at all.
They responded to his message.
Right.
And he's upset about that?
Yeah. He's angry.
He's angry. That doesn't make any sense. Jonah, you got a word from the Lord. The people repented. Revival's happening.
Yeah.
And you're mad.
What's your deal, man?
What's your deal? Okay, but it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry, and he prayed to the Lord and said, "O Lord, is not this what I said when I was yet in my country?" Okay, so we know what Jonah was thinking. He's telling him, I before I left in that ship, before I got in the heart of that ship, I knew this was going to happen. This is why I made haste to flee Tarshish. Had nothing to do with him being scared.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with him being scared.
More about him having a hard heart.
For I knew,
Yeah.
listen, for I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, and relenting from disaster. Basically, if I could paraphrase Jonah here, what he's saying is, God, I knew they would respond to your goodness.
Yeah. They don't deserve that.
They don't deserve it.
Yeah.
And so here's the temptation, right, for us, okay? If you think about the story of Jonah, I just told you, I think you can go to 2 Kings and look up. He gave a word to Jeroboam that the kingdom is divided, it's under attack, and it is a word from the Lord that came to him that said, that God was going to expand their borders. Imagine, if you will, a scenario. I mean, can you imagine, like, you're in, 1930s or 40s France, right? And so God delivers a prophetic word that, hey, the French are gonna, you're a French person, you're gonna retake ground from the Nazis, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden God says, okay, now go give this word to Hitler.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to,
Right.
I'm trying to somehow just kind of put it into this thing, and then Jonah's sitting there, and if Jonah knew, wait, if the word of the Lord comes to me, and then I go and deliver this, and then they repent. The thing is like, you're going to try and figure it out, right?
Yeah.
You're going to try to be like, well, what does this mean? What does this mean for my country?
Man. I was like, even modern day, because Nineveh would be a place, ISIS, some of those terrorist groups that are doing awful things.
Yeah.
And so, these are probably, great grandfathers.
Right.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like God's, go talk to them.
Go talk to them. And so here's the deal. And this is where we'll just kind of land this here. Because these are things that need to be being stirred up in our hearts.
Sure.
Who are the people that I think are beyond the grace of God?
Yeah.
Who are the people in my life? And so when God says, hey, go talk to them about me, go talk to them about my love, go talk to them, and we sit there and say, yeah, but no, they don't deserve it.
Right.
Those are the moments that we are becoming like Jonah.
Yeah.
It's really something that's very sobering and very, very heavy for us to think about.
Yeah.
But if we're going to be honest, and if we're going to take this book seriously,
yeah,
if we're going to rescue Jonah,
yeah, absolutely.
there's some deep, deep truths for us there.
For sure. Taking the place of God.
Yeah.
Really, we're trying to no, we're going to take the judge's seat.
Yeah.
And we're going to no, God, I know that these people aren't worth it.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness.
And I could just see if I just put myself in Jonah's situation again, trying to piece things together, because it's like, well, wait a minute, the Assyrians are coming in against us. Maybe we've slightly prevailed against them in some aspects and pushed back and all that, and we're finally getting our bearings. But what if I go into their city and then they repent, and that means, well, now God's blessing and favor is going to be upon them. What does that mean for me? What does that mean?
Right.
And so here's the thing is Jonah is actually struggling, I think, with something that a lot of people struggle with, and it's this idea of nationalism.
Oh, yeah.
Where love of nation overtakes love of humanity.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So,
wow.
A lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
So
that's a great statement.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wrap my brain around. That tweet.
That'll tweet, right? But a singing vegetable won't tell you that.
And again, it's like, it's not that those stories are necessarily bad in themselves, but like, no. you can't take a movie that watered down and then and hold it in regards to scripture.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, there's so much more.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're saying is really.
Yeah. Cause, please. And I hope our listeners, I'm giving these vegetables and some people, it's like, if they've never seen VeggieTales, they're like, what is he talking about? So, VeggieTales, look it up. No. Like I said, my kids watched it and stuff, but I think it's something that we have to, again, just be very, very, very careful, especially if you grew up in the church, especially if you grew up hearing these stories. There's a way in which sometimes we can just kind of gloss over it and not see it for what's really there. And rightfully so. There's some concepts that a kid can't understand,
Sure.
Even as I go back through Genesis and I hear stories about Jacob and different things like that, I'm like, oh, these people were messed up. Like
Right.
this is, and that's the point. The point is that God works with messed up, broken people.
Yeah.
And that's good news.
So it's true. Yeah,
You know, that's good news.
yeah,
And even if someone like Jonah, a prophet, can get it wrong,
yeah,
you know. But again, I've got to read this with humility and not cast judgment on them. So, Jonah, you're so stupid. No, again, what am I doing?
right.
How do I treat, people around me?
Yes.
What do I think about my own country?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Yeah. All right.
Sure.
Well, hopefully we kind of hit you between the eyes there,
Yeah.
and with some truth bombs and stuff. So, and then hopefully Pastor Jon will be with us next week to join in, because I know he was excited about this as well. So, hey, thanks for joining us on the Big Igloo Podcast, Theology Thursday, smart theology, dumb dad jokes, and like, subscribe, share. It's all free. We'll catch you next time.